Hello, everybody, and either welcome or welcome back to my podcast. As always, if you do like this, please rate, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube. So today I'm going to do something that I normally try to avoid doing, and that's commenting on a news story before it kind of reaches its 24-hour peak. Normally I like to give it at least 48 to 72 hours, if possible, if it doesn't run up on my recording time. But today is kind of a special case, and that is because today is officially Mueller Report Day. Yes, the Mueller Report in its currently redacted form is available for public consumption. You can find it on the internet. You can read it on any device you wish. It's been made public to Congress. It's been made public to everybody. So, yeah. This isn't really a breaking story per se, because we've been discussing this for freaking ever. And really this all started with the Barr letter from, God, what are we, about 3 weeks ago now? But yeah, today is officially the Mueller Report Day. And what we have found out so far is that it seems at this point, and let me go ahead and preface this by saying that this report dropped, let's see, it's about 3:30 now, so it's been, let's see, maybe 5-6 hours since it's been out, and people have read it, people have gone through it, people are already starting to discuss it, narratives are already starting to form, obviously. So here is kind of where we're at right now. And I say that because information may come to light later on that may change some of this. I'm not sure. I'm kind of thinking it won't, because it seems that what Barr said this report would be is what it is. And to kind of put a little more of a finer point on that, Barr had said in his original letter, when he kind of gave the outline of what was in the Mueller report and timelines and everything, that there was no proof of collusion, that Mueller had not found any proof of collusion, and that there were no charges of obstruction, which both of those have turned out to be true. There is no proof of collusion between Trump, or the Trump campaign, and Russia, and there was nothing that either Mueller or Barr could find that would make an obstruction charge stick. Now, that's not to say that it wasn't investigated. Barr said in his press conference today, which he gave right before the report dropped, was that Mueller had looked at 10 possible instances of collusion and could not find enough there to make anything stick. But what is funny, and something that did come out of this report, is that it seems like Trump really wanted to do an obstruction of justice, but his staff really wasn't having it. So Trump is Selena Meyer. So let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. The man is the real-life embodiment of Selena Meyer. But another thing that Barr pointed out, and it seems to be the truth. I mean, like I said, I've never came at this with the idea that Barr had a reason to lie. A lot of people did, and I thought that was kind of like a really weird stance. But Barr said that Trump did not invoke executive privilege, which means Trump did not invoke his right to read this report before anybody else, and he did not invoke his right to redact anything out of the report. So anything that is redacted out of the report is due to Barr and Mueller and Rosenstein doing the redactions. Now, that is to say, there are redactions in the report. It seems to me, though, I scrolled through it, I have not read all 448 pages, but scrolling through, you can see the redactions, and each redaction is labeled for the reason as to why it was redacted. And there were some that were redacted for national security concerns. There were some that were redacted for a couple of other reasons. But the vast majority of the retractions that I noticed pertained to retractions of information that was pertinent to other grand jury investigations that are going on, which is exactly what Barr said they would be. So again, at this point, it does not seem that Barr has ever lied or misconstrued anything about the report. So there's that. Anyway, moving forward, there is one thing that is worth discussing, and that is the fact that Mueller did point out in his report that he believes that Russia did attempt to influence the election. However, he does not think that they did it at Trump's behest. Now, these are two separate issues that people are mashing together into one thing, but I feel like they really need to be separated out into two different things. If Russia attempted to influence our election, okay, that is something worth discussing. But the point of this is that it was not done at Trump's behest, which that was the whole point of this investigation in the first place. Not to establish whether or not Russia did try to exert some kind of influence on our election. I think we are all at the point now where we can all agree that yes, that happened. The point of the special counsel investigation was to determine whether Trump had anything to do with it. And the report has come back that he did not. So, it's one of those things where people are trying to still conflate the two things, and it seems to me pretty obvious that these are two separate issues, and one of these issues has now been officially put to bed. Whatever ends up happening with anything going forward with trying to punish Russia for trying to influence our elections, I don't know. I don't know where that goes. It seems to me that there's always the argument to be made that we influence other people's elections, other people try to influence our elections. Okay, sure. If you're going with that, I don't really know what you do or say to Russia at this juncture, but yeah, that is what it is at this point. And there are other parts of the Mueller report that people have cherry-picked and are currently cherry-picking as I'm recording this. The one that really started earlier today was there was a part in the Mueller report where apparently, I'm not quite sure who was talking to Trump, but they were telling him about the special counsel investigation. And Trump had said something to the effect of like, I'm fucked. This is the end of my presidency. And a lot of people like to stop the quote right there and try to say that like, this is evidence that Trump did something wrong and he was scared. But the full entirety of the quote was that I'm fucked. My presidency is over. People tell me that these special counsel investigations take years and years and years, and they go on for forever and ever. And that's where he was coming from by saying his presidency was fucked. Not that that was an admission of guilt, but that's just the first kind of cherry picking that we've had so far. I'm sure there will be more going forward as more people just start digging into this and trying to find. They're still a little trying to grasp onto this, that, or the other to prove that this hasn't been debunked, which, in my opinion, like at this point, Russiagate is done. Like, here's the report. It says there was no collusion. There was not enough there to charge Trump with obstruction of justice. And that's it. Like, the rest of it, of course Trump is a shady motherfucker. Of course he's done stupid, shady things. If you needed this report to tell you that, you haven't been paying attention for the last, 30 years. Like, the whole point of this report, as I have said before, and I will keep saying until I'm blue in the face because I'm pretty sure this is going to have to be repeated over and over and over again, is that the point of this investigation was to determine whether or not Trump colluded with the Russians in order to gain some kind of advantage over Hillary, if he had anything to do with the DNC hack or the emails or anything like that, and also to determine if he committed any obstruction of justice during this investigation. And that's it. And that's, to me, all that is really relevant here. And it's just been, and this has been 2+ years of just pure goddamn insanity. Like, I'm still, and it's not going to stop. Like, I know there are people that are going to go to their graves insisting that Trump did something shady to win this election. I know this. I know today is not going to be the end of this story. It should be, but it ain't. So, to kind of give my current thoughts on this situation, which is another reason why I wanted to do this episode today, because I'm kind of interested in the idea of giving your thoughts as something breaks. Like like I said, normally I wait, but I don't know. I think it's interesting maybe to get one's thoughts on record when they first hear news versus after they've processed it. I don't know. It's something I might try in the future. We'll see how this works out. But the first point I want to make, and I'm pretty sure I've made this point before on the podcast. I know I've done it on Twitter. But the whole reason this started at all is because there were people who could not accept the fact that Hillary lost in 2016. That's where this whole fucking thing started. And I know I have discussed this on the podcast before, because I pointed out the day after the election, this started. This whole screaming about Russian collusion and Russian interference. And I think it's important to remember at this point, because we have gotten so far afield of where this started, to remember, especially today, how this all started. And that is from people who just straight up could not accept the fact that Hillary lost. And so now we've gone through the past 3 years because of these people. Like 3 years of just absolute bullshit insanity, because people didn't want to unpack how and why Hillary lost. And when this first started, like, okay, Hillary lost to Donald. I get it. A lot of people were upset. It definitely was not something very many people saw coming at all. And so I thought that, like, okay, cool. This is just a little temper tantrum. This is a thing that people are doing because they're not ready to come to terms with the fact that Hillary lost. And that eventually this would blow over, for lack of a better term, or die down, or people would start to realize this is a really fucking stupid thing to do. Obviously, I was wrong. And that, I don't know what to say to that. Like, normally after an election, like the losing team, you give them a little bit of time, you lick your wounds, you cry it out, you do whatever you got to do, and then eventually you start doing your post-mortem and figuring out where it all went wrong so that it doesn't go wrong again. That has never happened for Democrats after 2016, because they had this. They had this to cling to instead of dealing with reality. And now reality is intruding. Like, this has kind of been like, for the past 3 years for Democrats, kind of been like on a vacation. Like, you're on vacation. You don't really have to deal with real life. You don't have to deal with your real problems. You can kind of ignore it and just kind of float about and do whatever it is you do. This is Democrats coming back from vacation and realizing, oh shit, now we have to actually deal with our real life problems. And this is quite possibly the worst time for Democrats to have this come to Jesus moment, because the 2020 campaign is already well in full swing. So I don't know how you handle that right now if you're the Democrats. I don't know how you would even start to post-mortem 2016 now that the 2020 campaign has already started. I don't really know what you do. Like, it's so crazy to me. Like, it's really the most batshit political thing I have ever seen. And I lived through the 2000 election. I actually voted in the 2000 election, Bush v. Gore election in Florida. I was part of that. I remember that. I remember the punch ballots and the dangling chads and the recount and the recount and the recounts and the Supreme Court decision. This is more insane than that, because even after that happened, I mean, obviously the Team Gore people were pissed, but everybody moved on eventually. And that never happened here. Like, people never fucking moved on. Like, that's what blows my mind about this. It's just like, I don't understand clinging to a narrative that was this thin for this long and thinking that somehow, some way, this was going to be the thing that would absolve you from having to take any kind of responsibility for your fuck-ups in 2016. Like, I'm still completely blown away by that. And even today, people are still screaming, despite having the report in front of them that says exactly what Barr said it would say, that somehow this is all Barr's fault and that this is some kind of covering for Trump or doing some such thing, or kind of insinuating that he's been lying this whole time, which it's pretty obvious from the report that it's exactly what he said it was. And I want to take a moment here just to point out, and this is not to defend Barr's whole record of being a lawyer, because, yeah, he's done some shady shit too, but at least in terms of this particular investigation, as long as he has been Attorney General, to me, he has handled this in the most above-board, transparent way possible. Like, so much of what Barr has done, he did not have to do. Like, he did not have to release his findings to anybody. He did not have to release the report to anybody. He did not have to talk to the press. He did not have to make himself available for questioning, which he actually did last week, and has made clear that both himself and Mueller are available for questioning in front of Congress if they should so choose to do that. I mean, it's been exactly what he said it was, and this has come out in exactly the time frame that he said it would. Barr said that this report would be available by mid-April. Here we are. He said it would be redacted. He said the reasons why it would be redacted, which seems to be exactly what he said it would be. And so I don't get trying to make him the bad man here. It seems like he's done everything he can possibly do to make this as transparent as possible, while also still protecting the other grand jury investigations that are currently going on into various and assorted people, and trying to make sure that those investigations don't get tainted by this report coming out, and then having information out there that is pertinent to those grand jury investigations, which grand jury investigations are conducted in secret. Nobody really knows what goes on. So obviously any information that is pertinent to a grand jury investigation has to remain under wraps. I don't like it. It's the way the criminal justice system works. Just wanted to go ahead and explain that real quick if you didn't quite understand that. So, I mean, I have no problem with how Barr has handled this. It seems like he's like I said, he's done everything he could possibly do to try and appease as many people as humanly possible, probably knowing full well that there are certain people who are never going to be appeased. Like, there's always going to be people who want more, and there's people that still want the unredacted Mueller report, despite Barr having explained repeated times why you can't have that, and those explanations being perfectly valid explanations. Like, it's not some kind of nefarious plot. It's like there's other shit going on, and so you can't have this information because that would interrupt other things that are happening. Like, there's nothing nefarious about that. Like, that just is what it is. So I wanted to go ahead and kind of stick up for Barr here. I know, he's an attorney general. Attorney generals usually suck ass, and Barr sucks ass in plenty of other ways, but in this particular instance, I have no problems with how he's handled this. Now, my overall thoughts right now on this situation, I mean, and I've discussed this before, but I want to go ahead and try to put a little bit of a cap on it today. Like, not saying that this is the last time we're going to be discussing this, because, like I said, my God, I'm sure we will be discussing this for months and years and decades to come. But this was really kind of a huge moment in political history. And it's one of those things, like, when you're in a moment, you don't really realize how significant it is, but this was really a big fucking deal. Like, a special counsel investigation was opened against a sitting president, accusing him of colluding with a foreign country to influence an election so that he can win the election. which, I mean, you stop right there. That's fucking huge. Like, that is a massive, massive assertion to make about anybody, let alone a sitting president. And then after 2+ years of investigating this and throwing however many millions of dollars at this, like, I don't even want to know what the bill is for this report. At the end of the day, for that report to come back and say that he did not collude with the Russians and that there isn't enough there to charge him with any kind of obstruction of justice charges, not saying that he didn't try to do it, but that he was prevented from doing it. I mean, that is a huge, huge deal. And I think it's something that we're not going to really appreciate until we have some distance from this, like maybe revisiting this in maybe, say, a decade. Maybe we might start to get a little more perspective on really what the hell we just lived through for really the past 3 years. Because like I said, it started the day after, like no joke. It started the day after he was elected. But I don't know how exactly you walk back the past 2+ years. All the shit that has happened. And this has just been, I don't know what to say about the environment that this has created over the past 2.5 years, ever since the special counsel investigation was started. And I mean, you can start with the press. So many people ran with this shit. And like, I've lost count. I have lost count of how many stories the press has run that have turned out to either have to be either corrected or straight up retracted about this story. And I know I've bitched about this before. I'm going to bitch about it again. This whole Russiagate nonsense has done so much damage to journalism. Like, this has really just completely changed the landscape of what is and is not acceptable to report on, and what is and is not acceptable to use as a source, what to actually run as a story. This has just changed how you vet a story. This has changed how editors do their jobs. Like, it's just been, this has done so much damage to journalism, and I don't know how you walk that back. Honestly, I don't think you do. I don't see what the industry of journalism can possibly do to make up for the past 2.5 years. Like, I don't see it. I don't see a way. It's been fundamentally ruined in a way that I know probably doesn't matter to a lot of people who listen to this, because y'all hate journalists anyway. I do too, up to a certain extent. But journalism does perform a function in our society. And now that that function has been so radically altered by this, I don't see a way. Like, we've gone from actual reporting on things that have been properly sourced and vetted and checked out, and editors have actually gone over it and been like, yes, this is good, to just reporting what the fuck ever for clicks or because it fits a narrative, and just not even bothering to vet anything, and just the anonymous sources. Just the amount of single source, anonymous source stories that have run is so wildly unacceptable. And it's creeped over into other reporting. Like I said, I cannot overestimate to you how much this has changed the landscape of journalism. And like I said, I don't know if you get that back. Another area that I don't know how you would ever begin to walk this back is the fact that there are people right now who have got their come up off of this, off of pushing the Russiagate narrative, off of peddling conspiracy theories, off of running these stories that turn out to be complete bullshit, but these people have made a name for themselves doing it. Like, there's a whole cottage industry of people making money off of pushing this narrative. And that is why, even right now, with everything that we now currently know, There are still people digging their heels in because they have to. Because that's their paycheck. That's where their money comes from. Poor Seth Abramson, I think, might have actually gotten broke by today. The last time I checked, he has a tweet thread going right now that he started less than 24 hours ago. And the last time I checked, it was at 200 tweets. 200 fucking tweets! In less than 24 hours. I can't imagine tweeting about anything 200 times in less than 24 hours. But that's his paycheck. He's got a book coming out. He's got a book already out. Like, there are so many people who make their money off of this shit. Made money off of peddling this conspiracy, of selling books, of just doing speaking tours, all of this shit that, again, like, it's created this insane industry. And I don't know how you walk that back either, because now what are these people going to do? I mean, I know what they're going to do. They're going to double and triple and quadruple down, just like BuzzFeed, who I'm still mad at, because you still ain't retracted that story saying that you saw proof, that Mueller had proof, that Cohen instructed Trump to lie to Congress, proof that does not fucking exist per Mueller, but you still want to run with this shit. See, like, that's what I'm talking about, though. Like, there's so many people who have so much invested in this, and it's not just reputation, it's money. I don't, like, it's just done so much damage. Like, I cannot overestimate it to you. And the last problem about the press and the conspiracy theorists and this kind of just like last gasp, I hope. I know it's probably not going to be, but it's just this last gasp of watching people have to come to grips with the fact that this thing that they pushed for years, that they made their names off of, they made their money off of, is not what they said it would be. It's not going to be what they thought it would be. This is not going to be the thing that makes Trump go away. And it's like, it's watching people in like their death throes right now, and they're still grasping onto things. It's just like, whatever they can grab a hold on to just keep a hold of the sinking ship so that they can keep their heads above water. But eventually, it's like, at some point, you're going to have to admit that you were wrong and apologize, and that's not going to happen. I know it's not going to happen. It's just this, it's such a weird environment, and it's such a weird thing that has happened, and I'll probably talk about this again after a couple days, because like I said, the new narratives are forming, and people are grabbing onto, they're trying to find the door so that they can get onto it with Rose, but there's only enough room on the door for Rose, so they're going to end up drowning, and Rose will end up surviving, even though there was enough room for Jack on the door, let's keep it honest. But the last point I want to bring up before I leave out of this for right now, and this is kind of what I think is the most important takeaway from this, and that is that this whole special counsel investigation, this whole Russiagate thing, this has set a precedent that I think will fundamentally change going forward how presidents are treated by people who do not like them. I mean, there is a reason that shit like this is supposed to happen very, very, very rarely, and only when you have very good proof of what you are accusing. This now sets up the idea that whoever is the next president, and the president after that, and the president after that, if for some reason you don't like that person, you can come up with, I don't know, what the fuck ever, and if you make enough noise, you can cause a special counsel investigation of a sitting president. That's not okay. That's really, really not okay. Like, there are certain norms that should not be eroded, and this is one of them, because this has been such a massive distraction from the actual job of being president, of letting this man do his job. And I am no Trump fan. I've made that abundantly clear, but this was flat fucking sane. Like, this should not have been. And now you've opened up this door to where this can happen to pretty much every president from here on out. Like 2+ years, however many millions of dollars we just spent on this, over nothing. Well, now you've set a precedent that you can do that. That if you just don't like the results of an election, you can just gin up something and start this whole fucking nonsense all over again. And it's like, I know nobody's going to sit down and think about this, but we should, because this is really something that should not ever happen again, barring there being very, 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 very good evidence that the president has done something wrong and has done something that is an impeachable offense, which to me, that's always been the goal of this, is did he do something that's an impeachable offense? Finding out that he colluded with Russians, okay. You can't really impeach him for that, because you can't impeach a sitting president for things that they did before they were a sitting president. That's why I've always been much more concerned about the obstruction of justice charges than I have been about the collusion charges. Because collusion charges, whatever. Maybe you could charge him with something after he's out of office. Obstruction of justice, that would have been an impeachable offense. And it's not there. So, I mean, there's been so much that has been fundamentally broken in politics over this whole Russiagate thing. And for this to all end up with nothing, with just nothing, for nothing, it's just, I don't know if the right people who need to sit down and think about that are ever going to sit down and think about that. But I think it is something for the rest of us to sit down and think about, and to realize that, like, yeah, this is going to be fundamentally different going forward. Things are going to be very, very different going forward. And I don't mean that in a good way. I mean, of course, I would just assume there'd be no president and no Congress and no FBI. But they exist. And now we are in a place where the FBI can be weaponized against the president. And Congress can weaponize the FBI against the president. It ain't going to end well. It just is not going to end well. So, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. If you did make it this far, thank you as always. And if you do like this, please rate, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube. Take care, and until next time.